Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
I didn't know I'd have a whole gang here. Good to meet you all.
It's nice to meet you.
Yeah,
Nice
I've
to
just
meet
been
you.
just been in touch with Donald. How are you guys?
We're good.
We're good.
So my name is Daniel Wright, based here in Denver, Colorado, and I served as co-producer of the film. So I came on board almost 3 years ago now. We started working on the film, and I was hired by the director and producer to come on board and really help, in the initial research and development stage to get a better understanding of the issue, who we want to speak to, how we will film the movie, and kind of build the movie from concept, and stayed on board through production, did all of the field producing, was on set for all the interviews, and then for the narrative portion as well. With the family in the AI control room, I was there and then kind of helped manage all of the fact checking and post-production process, working with the graphics people and the composers and the editors to get the movie finished. So yeah, co-producer, our producing team is made up of 5 people. We have our director, our producer, 2 co-producers, and a production coordinator. So we're kind of the team of 5 who really work on the film from a day-to-day basis to really get it from I like to say from concept to end credits.
Do you know how many people have seen it so far? Like the documentary as a whole?
We don't have the final specific numbers from Netflix. Unfortunately, they're pretty cagey about their data, but they did release some numbers after the first month, after the film was released on September 9th, and they said that it was the second most viewed documentary within the first month after a release. So they said 38 million households had seen the film after the first 4 weeks. So, obviously the number has gone up from there, and that was households. So, that doesn't count how many people are actually sitting in front of the TV watching. So, massive amount of people have seen the film, which is, really exciting for us. We're just a small, independent documentary team, and making films, tried to make them as good as you can, and as honestly as you can, and you just hope that the film will be finished and then from there distributed. But to have it on Netflix has been just a massive privilege, an opportunity for our film team, and just humbling to kind of think about the scale of the reach of the film.
Do you know what the number one documentary was?
It's let me I think it's called The American Murder, The Family Next Door, some murder show. Not as good in my opinion. I'm biased.
How did this project get started?
Yeah.
What was the inspiration overall?
Sure. Well, I think with these documentaries, ideas can come from anywhere. And our company, Exposure Labs, has made 2 previous documentaries, both environmentally focused films, called Chasing Ice and Chasing Coral. And so, as a company, we try to focus on environmental issues just because that's what we feel, and I personally feel like is the biggest, issue facing our generation today. And so when I, came on board the project and we were learning about the issue, I think myself and our entire team included was, a little apprehensive about working on a film about social media. It just didn't feel like it was as important as climate change, of course. But as we dove into the research, we started to realize that this is a massive problem, and it's actually the problem beneath all other problems, because social media and the current technological ecosystem is really breaking down our information ecosystem. And if we can't agree on what is true, and if we can't come to consensus on what is fact, what is science, then how are we ever going to solve the other big problems facing us today? So it's kind of, it started off, our company started off working in environmental films, but really realized that this is a massive problem. And I think there is an interesting parallel between the environmental work, because just like climate change is caused by extraction of oil and gas and lumber, and kind of irresponsible uses of resources. This time with the social dilemma, it's us. We are the resource. Our human attention, our eyeballs are what is being sold. That's what's the product, and it's causing all these downstream effects and issues.
Did you know personally how bad the problem was before you started working on the documentary?
Yeah, good question. No, I didn't. I think before I started working on the film, I was an avid social media user. I did feel like I was addicted. I was checking all the platforms. I had all the notifications turned on, and I felt like, I was on the platforms a lot. I enjoyed using the platforms, and I never really thought of them as, negative, and especially not causing global side effects. I knew it was probably an issue for me to, lose some time, break my attention, distract me. But I didn't really think of it as an existential threat facing, causing issues on a global scale. But then after I, started working on the film, I did realize that, the same issues that I'm experiencing, whether it's, distraction or FOMO, or, building a little filter bubble that only I am living in and I'm getting information from. All those things that are happening to me as an individual are happening on a global scale to billions of others. There are 3 billion monthly users of Facebook. And so you think about, how I feel once I turn off my phone. It's like, darn, there were friends that got together and didn't invite me, or, someone commented on a photo and said something rude, and I was pissed off and I was angry for the rest of the day. That's happening, on a billion level scale. And that's when it really kind of became real for me.
So were you like involved with a tech company or like anything like that before going on to the film?
Was I personally like working at a tech company?
Yeah, or like something related to that?
No. I've been kind of since I graduated college, I've been working in film production. And I think that's something that I do love about film, producing documentaries, is that I kind of consider it a miniature PhD, where you really do need to dive into the subject matter and learn about who the experts are, read big, thick books, do all the research to try to understand the issue as completely, as you can, in order to try to consolidate that information that you've learned and try to make it, more relatable to the masses. I think, a lot of the films that I've worked on are science related, and scientists sometimes have trouble communicating these issues in an engaging and effective way. So I think that's the power of film. And, one of the tools that is so, such a great tool of documentary film is that you can take a concept that's complicated and hard to understand and really, if you're doing your job right, condense it into a 90-minute film that's engaging and, leaves the audience members like yourselves feeling like you've learned something, but also activated to take some action in your own life.
So then how did you find the people who you wanted to interview and talk to during the documentary?
Yeah. So it comes from research. I think every film was different, but Tristan Harris, who was the ex-Google employee in the film, the redheaded guy, actually went to college at Stanford with our director, Jeff. So they were colleagues, and the way Jeff started to learn about these issues was he actually saw Tristan posting on Facebook about the issues he was experiencing while working at Google. And I think Jeff was interested. Like me, he hadn't really heard of any negative aspects of tech. I think, 4 or 5 years ago, we were all, of the mindset that social media is good. It connects people, it shares information, and there aren't any harms being caused. But I think, learning from Tristan first of all, and then starting to do our own research and learn about a lot of other people who have been speaking about these issues for years, whether they're, tech employees who worked at the companies, or they're external researchers who are studying how algorithms can, have inherent bias built into them and cause lots of issues downstream. There were people who were thinking about these issues, so we just needed to do the research, learn who to interview, and as we started the interview process, kind of like a snowball where, you know, you build the snowball, you start to push it down the hill, and as you do more research, dive into more material and speak to more people, the snowball starts to grow, and you start to meet more and more people who you know, can speak on the issue from an expert point of view. So it was hard. We made it, you know, started making the film almost 3 years ago. So at first it was very hard to get people to speak out on camera. We actually did a few anonymous interviews early on just to try to understand the issue more from people who didn't feel like it was, you know, they didn't feel comfortable speaking out publicly on camera. So that was, you know, kind of some of the first research we did. But as we did more and more interviews, we started to meet more people and got connected to lots of the employees who, you know, really built these algorithms and these products. We interviewed the guy who invented the like button. We invented the person who invented the infinite scroll. You know, people who were in the room kind of building the advertising business model at Facebook. So had, you know, access to some of the people who were in the rooms when these products were being built.
Do you think people employed at these big tech companies understand like what they created, or do you think they're actually oblivious to what's going on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, I think from our work on the film, we interviewed people who built these products, and they themselves, you know, were the ones who built it, and now they're feeling some regret on what they unleashed into the world. I think everyone acknowledged that they didn't mean harm when they were building these things. You know, when they invented the like button, they just wanted to add positivity into the world. They didn't think that it would cause, you know, mental health crises for, you know, a younger generation or add to political polarization. They were just trying to add, you know, build engagement, add another thing to the platform that would make it more fun. So I sure hope that everyone who is still working at these companies today understand the issues. I think there's, you know, it's easy to be working at these companies and really be laser focused on the positives. And I think we've heard that a lot, where people do acknowledge that there are negatives, but they feel like the positives outweigh the negatives. I also feel like the people who work at these companies are getting paid a lot of money, so it's easy to ignore the problems when you're walking home with a full pocket each day. But no, I do feel like I think these companies do recognize the issues, and I think they are, you know, doing things to address them. I feel like every solution that they employ is kind of a Band-Aid solution, where you're, you know, or like a game of whack-a-mole where you're kind of hitting one mole at a time, but another one keeps popping up. And that's what we address in the film, is that it's the advertising business model and this attention economy, what we're talking about. You know, so long as the companies are built on a model that is trying to monetize our attention and keep us engaged, these issues are going to continue to pop up. I also think, and you all may be future employees of these companies, I'm not sure what your interests are or career paths are, but you know, these companies, the people who work at them are some of the smartest people and designers and engineers in the world. And so, you know, I would like to think that they can use their expertise to start to solve, you know, some of the world's biggest issues, rather than just trying to sell us more ads. So I hope that they understand the issue, and I do feel like they're working. I just don't know if they're working quite hard enough.
And then you talked about it there for a brief second. You talked about it a lot with the film, is political polarization, where you just get to extremist groups and not people wanting to communicate. Do you think that all transcribed on January 6th with people rioting at the Capitol building and breaking in?
Yeah, I do. I think we've been in this, you know, experiment for the past decade where, you know, we're each being fed information that we already agree with. You know, the things when you and I are on these platforms, you know, it's much easier to surround ourselves with people and articles and news sources that, kind of reinforce what we believe in and what we think. And now we're 10 years into this rabbit hole, each and every one of us, where we've had our own news feed that's customized to us. If I picked up Donald's Facebook or his Instagram, the people that I see or the things that I'm looking at probably wouldn't interest me that long. And if Donald did the same for me, it wouldn't be as engaging. These news feeds and our platforms have been so personalized to each and every one of us that it's keeping us engaged in the best way that the algorithm knows how to. And I think what happened at the Capitol and the riots on January 6th were kind of the boiling point of all these issues, where people haven't been able to see another perspective for a long time. And we are at a point where we're starting to refuse to understand and listen to the other perspectives. And when tensions are high, like a election year, and polarization is at its peak, I think it was a byproduct of these platforms. And even in the film, Tim Kindle, who is the director of monetization at Facebook, he said, we asked him in an interview what he's kind of most afraid of in the short term, and he said civil war. And we didn't even think about it, including that in the film at first, just because we felt like it was so extreme and so, it was kind of a polarizing statement in itself. But then on social media, ironically, after all the events at the Capitol, people were saying things like they feel like they were watching Social Dilemma in real life, or saying that, the Social Dilemma called it. And of course, this is, it's an awful situation, very, very tragic, but I think it is a byproduct of these platforms and how they've been operating.
Going off of that, do you think that democracy can fully exist while these types of social media platforms are still in play?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I hope so. I think this has been a big test for democracy the past few years, and I think social media has been a stressor on all of that, for sure. But the film isn't anti-tech or anti-social media. We've settled on the thesis of the film being the problem, lies in the business model. And so I think so long as that's the business model, then we're going to continue to have issues. But I think there are a lot of things that come, a lot of positives that come from social media, like freedom of speech, information at your fingertips, being able to share and connect different ideas. But it's the business model. It's this attention economy that is always trying to keep us more engaged, and by doing so is feeding us and sending us down these different rabbit holes. I think that's the big test. So I do think democracy has prevailed in the past year. There were definitely some challenges, and there's going to be lots of challenges in the past. But I'm optimistic that people are working on these issues, and I think films and articles, books like The Social Dilemma that helps to kind of provide a baseline understanding of these issues and how each and every one of us are, part of this problem. I think that'll help, help the general public understand, and hopefully help policymakers also start to think about how they can, start to regulate these platforms and take some of the power away.
So what do you think comes next to try to solve the problem? Do you think it has to start with Google and Facebook or these companies, or do you think it starts with legislation passed by the government?
Mm-hmm. I think all of the above. Our team at Exposure Labs has an impact campaign, working on these issues every day. We feel like making a film is just kind of the first step in, starting the conversation. Part of the issue that we talk about in The Social Dilemma is, everyone's got their own newsfeed, everyone's in their own filter bubbles, and we need to break out of those filter bubbles. And hopefully The Social Dilemma and other films, there's another great film called Coded Bias that talks about kind of algorithmic racism and how bias can be built into algorithms from the ground up and cause lots of issues. So I think films like this provide a baseline of understanding, but now that the conversation has started, it's up to us and you, journalists, to continue the conversation, to continue to explore solutions, and talk about the issues with the people who are in the room and can control them. But so back to our impact campaign, we're thinking about it in 3 different prongs of the solution. So that's kind of how tech is designed. So that's, inside, internally at these platforms, how can things be changed, or how can the future generations design platforms that are even better? The second one is how tech is regulated. So, policymakers, legislators, elected officials, how can, we hold them accountable to keep things in our best interest and protect, our public interest rather than the interest of these big companies. And then how the third one is how tech is used. So how, a general awareness of how we're using it, how often we're picking up our phone, why are we on social media? How are notifications interrupting our day? All of those things. So I think those are the 3 prongs of the solution: how tech is used, designed, and regulated. And we're kind of tackling all of those in the impact campaign. And you can go to our website, thesocialdilemma.com, and learn more on how you can get involved in each of those.
And then do you have anything else you want to add before we're done?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think just, to go back into, your world and the classrooms at Wadsworth High School, I think, you guys are the future generation. You're the ones, and your peers and friends are the ones who are going to, really control how you use these platforms and how your friends use them. And you'll be the ones who are hopefully the future filmmakers, the future journalists, the future tech designers, the future policymakers. And, the more that you can understand this issue and try to protect, yourselves and future generations, the better. I don't think anyone wants to be a product. And, that's currently how we all are. Every time we, any technology we use these days are kind of using us as a product, and making money off of our behavior. So, thinking about how you 3 and your school and your generation can, take back control over what you're thinking, what you're seeing, who you're talking to, and how you're spending your life. Because, I don't think anyone wants to be just doom scrolling through someone else's highlight reel when we could be out, making big change and doing good things with our own lives. So I think that's kind of my 2 cents.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk to us and to help us.
No, of course. Yeah. Great to meet you. If you have any other follow-up questions, definitely send them my way, and we'd love to see the final piece whenever it's ready. Yeah. Well, great to meet you all. Good luck.
Good to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
You too.